Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topics Gamer here to share with you another one of my worst to best ranking tier list style videos to share with you guys today. Now, since my last one did so well in the form of me ranking worst to best all of the current Batman games that have existed, I thought it was only natural that I jump to the other side and go to Marvel and go over who has obviously been my favorite solo Marvel superhero of all time, and from the Spider-Man, and he's had a very respectable collection of video games. I would even say, yeah, I think Batman and Spider-Man are really the primary heroes of their respective comic book genres that have had a successful set of, wide-ranking video games and have had the most success, so it only felt natural to go to Spider-Man next. So if you do happen to enjoy this video, by again, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep track of me on all my future videos. And remember, if you guys have any ideas for future tier list rankings or top list ideas or discussion videos, or just want to join me in my weekly Q&A, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to get them up as soon as I can. Now, I will say this, the number of Spider-Man games is quite expansive, and there's a lot more Spider-Man games than I thought starting now. And I have to say, this is definitely a much more interesting collection of Spider-Man games than I originally anticipated, because a number of these games definitely came out before my time, but I definitely remember playing the vast majority of these at different points in my life. So I'm just going to do my best just to kind of give my initial thoughts on each of them. But on top of that, I do want to just kind of knock out the Spider-Man games that I absolutely do not remember ever playing or have no real memory of. So just going in order from what I see here, I do not know what this is. Let's see, go down the list. I don't know Spider-Man Doctor Doom's Revenge. I'm not familiar with that. I never played a Spider-Man game on DS. What else? I don't think I played this Game Boy Advance Spider-Man game. I know that there was a Spider-Man 2 Game Boy Advance game, but I do not think that is it. What else do I know I did not play? I think this is an updated version of another Spider-Man game, but I certainly do not remember ever playing it on the Sega 32X. I absolutely could never have played the Spider-Man game on Atari 2600. However, I did see the Angry Video Game Nerd play that in his Spider-Man games review, so that's my only experience with it. I did play one of the Spider-Man Game Boy games when I was a kid, but I was not aware that there was a second one or a third. And I don't think that is Spider-Man and the Sinister Six. I do see it here, but I'm pretty sure this game is not it. I think I passed that one. What else? I don't even know what this Spider-Man game is. Man, this video is just starting off on a good note. I don't know what this one is, and I don't know what this one is. So, almost half of the list. We are just off to a great start with this list, aren't we? Okay, let's go on the list. I'll just go from left to right just to keep it simple. Okay, PlayStation 4 Spider-Man is easily, I love this game. It is without question the best Spider-Man game by a wide margin. This is almost a 10 out of 10. I believe it's a 9.5. This is easily my third favorite interpretation of the Spider-Man character outside of Tobey Maguire's portrayal of Spider-Man in the Sam Raimi films and the animated Spider-Man that we got during Fox Kids in the 90s. Those are my top 3 favorite interpretations of Spider-Man. So it's this game, the animated show, and the live-action movie. This one did a fantastic job. I think it handled the characters absolutely well. I absolutely love the story. The ending is absolutely heartbreaking. The combat works exactly well. It takes some inspiration from the Arkham games, but it certainly has its own style, which allows it to stand apart. And that's something that a number of kind of copycats of the Arkham games had a hard time doing, but I think that this Spider-Man game in general does a fantastic job. I think the RPG elements are great. The gadgets are very, very well. This very much does feel like a version of Peter Parker that would exist in one interpretation, which is why, to this day, I think it'll probably always be the Spider-Man game I love more than any other. Next, we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. I am not a fan of Miles Morales. I think he's an okay character, but even to this day, I'm not a fan of him. I like the Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse movies, but again, I'm just not a fan of Miles Morales. But this felt more like DLC than its own individual game, but I will say I liked it. Didn't love it. I only played it once. I do believe I platinumed this, and I don't have any intention on going back and replaying this game. So that's just where I'll leave it there. Spider-Man 2. I am in a very difficult spot with this. I think because I know a lot of you like this game, some people I know how I feel about this game, so I think we should just do the right thing and just skip this game and not talk about it. I won't say anything positive about it, but I won't say anything negative about it because I feel if I say anything negative about it, a lot of you guys are going to come after me. So, out of respect, let's just move on to the next game and just not talk about it. I'm not saying positive or negative, it's a game we don't need to talk about on this list. I know a lot of you guys love it, but let's just say I have certain thoughts about the game that I think it's probably best I just keep them to myself. So, on to the next game. Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation 2. I like this one, but I think it was just okay. I didn't like it as much as the first one. And you have to remember that the PlayStation version was also kind of similar to the N64 version. They were kind of almost one and the same. So I kind of see them as one game only. Spider-Man 2 for Game Boy Color. I wasn't really impressed. I do remember playing this when I got my Game Boy Color, but I didn't think it was all that great. However, Spider-Man 2, PlayStation 2, for the movie, loved it. A lot of it. This game really took what they did in the first movie Spider-Man game and really cranked it up. And to this day, it's still one of the most beloved Spider-Man games of all time, and it's absolutely well worth it. I think it did a great job with not just the character and the telling of the story apart from the movie, but it added a number of elements that necessarily weren't in the film that felt very, very genuine to the type of story that they were trying to tell. But this is, even by today's standards, a fantastic Spider-Man game. I wish they would actually do a remastered version of this and re-release it. Luckily, I do think I still have my copy kind of somewhere around in storage or in one of my boxes, but this was a fantastic Spider-Man game for its time, and I think it still holds up to this day. Unfortunately, its follow-up wasn't so much in the form of Spider-Man 3. I was not impressed. This was a major step down from the second game, and it's very confusing as for why. I'm not sure if this was the same team or they were trying to do too much. I personally I don't hate Spider-Man 3. I think that there's a number of things about Spider-Man 3, the film, I think really work and I really enjoy, but a number of those elements don't transfer very much to the game, and therefore it feels even more disappointing than the movie was. Even though I think the movie itself was okay, it should have been better, and I felt like this was a major step back in the wrong direction. Next, we have Spider-Man on the Super NES. I believe this is also a beat 'em up, and I do think I can put it on the same level as Venom and Carnage. They're both kind of in the same departments in the terms of I did like them. I did play this when I was a kid. Both of them were both kind of, I think they were both kind of beat 'em ups, and in the form of Venom and Carnage, you actually got to take control of Venom in some level. So it was weird that Carnage was the main threat, and yet Spider-Man and Venom had to team up. But that's typically how it works out in a number of the interactions when Carnage gets involved, because I think Carnage, in a sense, is a little bit more dangerous than Venom. And the other beat 'em up I thought was not quite as good, but they're both on the same level. But you know what? I think I'll put Venom and Carnage a little bit over that one. Next, we have Spider-Man. I believe this is Edge of Time. I really liked this game. This had two elements where you got to play as Peter Parker and Miguel, who was Spider-Man 2099. And there was like a dimensional thing, and they ended up having to switch time spots, and they have to work together. I thought, I really liked this game. I really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic Spider-Man game. A lot of people don't say many good things about it, which is surprising because I personally had a lot of fun with it. There's a good amount of exploration, not so much open world. It's more done in a more linear space. Both sets of combat for Miguel and Peter, very, very different, but it's amazing how well they work in each other's time zones. I just thought it was just a fantastic Spider-Man game. Next, Spider-Man Friend or Foe. I thought this was just okay. Interesting concept, interesting elements, very much stands apart, but not quite as good as other Spider-Man games that came out during that time. Next, we have the classic Spider-Man, which came out for Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. This was also a great game, even for its time. I do believe this is the N64 version, which I did play. fantastic game. The controls are a little off. Takes a little while to get used to, but once you get the hang of it, it's a blast. Next, Spider-Man: Return of the Sinister Six. Dear God, this was for Game Gear. Woo, this game was rough. But I gotta put it in not impressed. There are some gameplay styles that can work on handheld, and others that can't. I do believe that was Game Gear. I may be wrong. It's either I'm almost 100% sure it was Game Gear. Positive. Yes, it was Game Gear. Just kind of, they tried something. It just didn't quite work out as well. Next, we have Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, or I do believe that's, yeah, Shattered Dimensions. And this one I also really liked. I thought it was interesting how there were 4 different interpretations of Spider-Man. You had to play as Spider-Man 2099, Basic Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir, and Symbiote Spider-Man. And each of their gameplay styles, sorry, were vastly different. And the main villain, surprisingly, was Mysterio. And I think that's a villain that doesn't really get like as much credit. He's a pretty effective villain. But the fact that he could actually affect Spider-Man across multiple different dimensions, I thought was interesting. So I think it was not quite as focused as something as like Edge of Time, but its story was very well told, and being able to play between 4 different Spider-Mans, I think was a welcome treat that added a lot of variety and didn't make any one particular Spider-Man too boring to play, because the gameplay styles themselves and the approaches of how their individual levels were set were very different. So that is why I think Shattered Dimensions was also a great Spider-Man game. Next, we have Spider-Man on the Genesis. I do remember playing this game, but I think it's just okay. Let me just put it there. I'll put it right there. Don't have too much of a lasting impression. It was just okay. I was able to beat it. Played with a few friends when I was that age. Just kind of in the middle. Next, we have Spider-Man the movie video game. This one stands out. This one kind of started that period. Not as good as Spider-Man 2, but I think it was a first great game. Again, a lot of movies, not of video games based off of movies, don't do very well. But this is one of those examples where it actually did do a lot of things very well. It felt like an authentic Spider-Man experience. I think even for the visuals at the time, worked very well. Combat worked very well. The storytelling was very well. But I just think that compared to other Spider-Man, it wasn't too spectacular. But I do think that for the time period, for the first of 3 games, this was a great first start, and I think it still holds up in many ways. Next, Spider-Man Web of Shadows. This was also, I think I really liked this one too. What made this one stand out the most was that it gave you the opportunity to have alternate, like, kind of like Paragon and Renegade choices. Over the course of the game, Spider-Man would be given choices on, should I do like a good thing or a bad thing? So there was a bit of replayability. It allowed for 2 different sets of paths, and I do believe that this is one of the few times, if not only times, where they make a Spider-Man game that has those type of directions in its plot and story and gameplay style. So it very much stood out to me the most in that department, which is why I would put it definitely in a game that I liked. Next, The Amazing Spider-Man. I think this was just okay. A lot of people don't really like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I think that there's some redeeming qualities, but I don't think they're all that great. No negatives against Andrew Garfield. I think he was fantastic. Peter Parker did a fantastic job with Spider-Man for what he was given. But the games, they were just kind of average for me. Nothing. They weren't too bad, but there really wasn't too much about them that just stood out too much. But while I was playing them, I did have a good time. Next, Amazing Spider-Man on Game Boy. This is the first Spider-Man game I know I played, and it was frustrating. Not so much bad, but like, it was frustrating. And it didn't look good. But then again, there were a lot of Game Boy games at the time on the original game, but that didn't look good. So you can't really write it, but yeah, this was frustrating. Next, Amazing Spider-Man. Oh god, no. I did not like this at all. Ugh, that was rough. They made some improvements with the sequel, but that first game for Amazing Spider-Man, that did not work with me at all. And then we have this Spider-Man game, and I'll put it in just okay, but I'll put it behind Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think the thing that stood out the most was the visual style itself. I think the gameplay itself and the story were fine with what they were trying to tell. They did repeat a number of like kind of cliche things that you would expect to see in a Spider-Man game, and that isn't necessarily bad. I think from a story's point of view, it didn't make it all that special, but the visuals itself are the primary thing that I remember this game for. But I do remember that it was a fine game. Just outside of the visuals, it wouldn't stand out too much among the crowd of just better Spider-Man games, or but a little bit above games I do think just didn't quite execute the gameplay style and what they were going with the overall experience of being Spider-Man quite as well. And I think that is about everything we need to go over this list outside of Marvel Spider-Man 2, which the less we talk about that game, the better. So that is my ranking of all the best worst of Spider-Man video games. So now that you've seen my list, if you could rank these individual categories, how would you rank these Spider-Man games? Please let me know in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.